Yo, yo. Okay, so I was going to get on with my day after the conference catch up, but as soon as just a few moments ago, Conundrum dropped a video about antinatalism and animals, and very excited to check this out. So I want to see this first, and then I'll try and get on with my weekend. Uh, all right, let's just jump right in.
There have been a couple of videos posted recently on antinatalism and non-humans. There have been a couple of videos posted recently on antinatalism and animals. In particular, people are arguing that antinatalism includes animals or that it does not. I thought I would chip in. Problems with existing commentaries. I watched a couple of videos on the topic. Unfortunately, all of them are wrong. Interestingly, they are wrong for the same reason. They are wrong because they try to argue for a specific definition of antinatalism based on personal opinions, biases, and interests of their respective authors.
So I assume he's going to appeal to the literature. Okay. Maybe.
And then they try to answer the
Actually, I kind of know. I got a little taste of where he was going, but I don't know if he's commenting a little bit about some of my commentary, but what I was doing with questioning definitions was not really making an assertion. It was questioning how do we situate definitions in the first place. I'm in favor of appealing to the philosophical literature and the canon to determine what the school of antinatalism would be, or the definition. At least that's where I would look. But I am curious how people are are going to situate their definitions. So it was more of a question. I wasn't making a positive assertion, but if you were to ask me personally, I'm more comfortable to say that's where I would go than common sense use, say through internet forums and stuff like that.
question based on these idiosyncratic definitions. Why is it wrong? Because it's not exactly what philosophers are talking about when they discuss antinatalism. These videos miss the mark. They don't accurately capture what antinatalism as a philosophy is. My approach.
So there's a caveat there of as a philosophy. Again, like as a philosophy, obviously you're going to use the philosophic literature, but as a social movement, as a whatever you want to call it, how are exactly what referent are we using is a point of inquiry.
My approach to the problem is as follows. I will not provide a definition of antinatalism. Attempts at providing short definitions for complex philosophical positions are not very fruitful. Sure, you can find definitions of transcendental idealism or existentialism in dictionaries, but I doubt you would get enough from them to answer very specific questions related to each of these views. Antinatalism is similar in this respect. It's a mistake to try to enforce a particular definition of antinatalism and to try to answer questions with it as the source of truth.
So I agree with that, which is why I inquired into how people are setting the default position or situating definitions, because which is why I didn't assert my definition, because I don't think it would be appropriate for a rando on the internet to say this is what antinatalism is for me. When in philosophical discourse or making an argument, I can define my terms and then proceed from there. But for just trying to figure out like the discourse, I appealing to, again, common use on the internet, I'd be skeptical of, and with the caveat of antinatalism as a philosophy. Obviously, I would look at the philosophy literature. Antinatalism as a social element, maybe I would look more to what is the common use at that point or the colloquial use. And maybe a distinction there could possibly be made.
Specifics of antinatalistic views vary across philosophers, which is why the claim that antinatalism includes animals is not entirely true, but also the claim that antinatalism excludes animals is also not entirely true.
Right, there's philosophers that argue for and philosophers that reject it. So they're both kind of true in a way.
It depends on the specific school of thought in the tradition. I will not answer the question who is included in antinatalism through my opinions. My opinions, my metaethics, my normative ethics, my views on positive obligations, and my favorite arguments are not relevant. The opinions of various commentators on antinatalism are also not relevant. What is the source of truth? The published literature. I will present.
So this is where I might have a disagreement. Well, I see a problem. Are we going to one, I would question. So when you appeal to myself, philosophers, and the published literature of notable philosophers, I guess the other question I'm going to ask is, how do we determine who's noteworthy? Because Conundrum and other people like Lenny and like we know like there's been people that are noteworthy but are not able to publish because like mainstream philosophy has its own issues. And are we looking at the Western tradition? Are we looking at other traditions? I would assume, knowing Conundrum for a while, that he would be appeal to a plurality of philosophical traditions. He would, I'm just assuming here, he wouldn't just say one particular one. But I think there is an area to question what are we consider like self-published literature. I think we would both question that, and the influence of whatever is published is just a question that I have. Anyways. Maybe he'll touch on that later on.
The views of antinatalist philosophers as they are, and the answers should emerge naturally. David Benatar. I'll start with the views of David Benatar, the most known, the most cited, and the most discussed antinatalist, who expressed his antinatalistic position in Better Never to Have Been. He is clear about one of his goals: to establish a specific moral or normative claim, a prohibition to have children. I shall argue that one implication of the view that coming into existence is always a serious harm is that we should not have children. He also explains that the same reasoning is applicable to all sentient beings. My argument applies not only to humans but also to all other sentient beings. They exist in a way that there is something that it feels like to exist. In other words, they are not merely objects but also subjects. This is because sentient existence comes at a significant cost. In being able to experience, sentient beings are able to, and do, experience unpleasantness. In the next paragraph, Benatar explains that he focuses on humans in the book because of practicality and because it's difficult for people to accept such arguments when they are applied to themselves. He expands on humans breeding animals in the lengthy footnote on pages 2 to 3, which he ends with, finally, the argument that animals are benefited by being brought into existence only to be killed ignores the argument that I shall develop in chapters 2 and 3, that coming into existence is itself, quite independently of how much the animal then suffers, always a serious harm. Benatar strengthens his focus on sentient life, rather than human life when he explains the asymmetry of distant suffering and absent happy people. He argues that we rightly do not feel sad that there are no Martians who could be living happy lives. Contrarily, if we knew there were Martians living very bad lives, we would rightly feel sorry for them. Benatar reinforces his commitment to his argumentation applying to animals and it having a moral, normative conclusion. Because my arguments apply not only to humans but also to other sentient animals, my arguments are also zoophilic in the non-sexual sense of that term. Bringing a sentient life into existence is a harm to the being whose life it is. My arguments suggest that it is wrong to inflict this harm. When Benatar invokes the term sentient, he really means to say that all types of sentient beings are harmed by coming into existence and that we should not bring them into existence. He writes, I have the same concerns about bringing conscious machines into existence as I do with bringing conscious humans or animals into existence. Benatar reinforces his views on animals when he discusses extinction, where he writes, my arguments in this chapter and previous ones imply that it would be better if humans and other species became extinct. Julio Cabrera. Cabrera dedicated a section on the question of animals in his book Malestar e Moralidade. He writes that although animals suffer, including through human cruelty, and are mortal, just as we are, they do not suffer morally. Animals, argues Cabrera, are not subject to moral disqualification. They cannot fail as moral agents because they are not moral agents. And moral disqualification is an essential component of the structure of human life that devalues human life. Animals are not valueless in the same way as humans are, and ethics is applicable only in situations between morally disqualified beings, humans. So, he argues, we cannot establish ethical relationships with them, nor can we apply ethics to our behavior towards them. And this is the reason why he's against being an antinatalist with respect to animals. He writes, while we may feel sorry for the sufferings that a type of animal, such as chickens, cows, or birds, will have when they are born, specifically their pain and discouragement coming from nature or humans, it would seem odd to have moral qualms about the birth of a non-human animal. For when they are cast into the world, they are not morally disqualified. There does not seem, therefore, to be a problem of procreation in the case of non-human animals, or reasons to be an antinatalist in the case of cats and dogs. The birth of a non-human animal is not as morally problematic as that of a human, or not at all. Karim Akerma, in Antinatalismus ein Handbuch and in various essays, Akerma writes that since both...
So this is kind of where I'm driving at. Is someone correct me if I'm wrong? I'm Karim Akerma. I don't believe, like, was this a self-published book? Like, I know, like, I respect Karim Akerma, but I disagree with him on things. But again, it's like, how do we determine who's noteworthy? Is it just when they're published in university publications, like, or self-published? This is a question I have for I don't know, for all of us, I guess.
humans and animals are capable of suffering, it's best to not bring any of them into
Because I'm pretty sure there's been some difficulty getting him on the Wikipedia, from what I've heard.
existence. He writes, antinatalists appeal to each individual not to produce any more humans and animals. He goes as far as to say that universal antinatalism aims at actively preventing other feeling creatures from coming into the world. Only human beings can be considered as addressees of the antinatalist moral theory, of whom, however, antinatalism also demands to, if possible, not allow any more animals capable of suffering to come into existence. This applies to agriculture as well as to wild animals, whose extinction must be initiated by sterilization in a way that is as painless as possible. He adds that he is in favor of extinction. In fact, I would be very much in favor of all animals capable of suffering becoming extinct. He is a proponent of universal antinatalism, a form of antinatalism that is concerned with every being capable of suffering. When constrained to animals, he would call this position animal antinatalism. Ackermann also recognizes that by following the minimal ethical requirement of reducing suffering, we should be against bringing animals into existence as well as creating conscious machines. Other thinkers. The relation of antinatalism and animals was also brought up by others. In particular, Magnus Winding.
Oh, appealing to Magnus now. Yeah, man. Now you're. He's not a philosopher. So it is in the philosophical discourse. Philosophers talk about what Magnus. Well, even that is questionable. Anyway, okay. Interesting selection. That's all I gotta say. Is that how are we making the selection? I've like, I mean, I'm in agreement in theory. Like, or sorry, like fundamentally, I'm in agreement. I just think there's some. I have you got answers. I got some questions.
Wrote The Speciesism of Leaving Nature Alone and the Theoretical Case for Wildlife Antinatalism, where he argues that the only thing that counts is someone's sentience, and that we have obligations to help wild animals just as we have obligations to help people. In the case of animals, we could prevent many of them from coming into existence and reduce their populations. Similar arguments are made by Ludwig Rahl in his master's thesis, Better Never to Have Been in the Wild, a case for weak wildlife antinatalism. And lastly, Bartłomiej Chomański in Antinatalism and the Creation of Artificial Minds animals, we could prevent many of them from coming into existence and reduce their populations. Similar arguments are made.
So, again, are we going to appeal to people's thesis for a master's degree? So, again, just wondering where the threshold is, where we discuss that, but whatever.
Made by Ludwig Rahl in his master's thesis, Better Never to Have Been in the Wild, a case for weak wildlife antinatalism. And lastly, Bartłomiej Chomański in Antinatalism and the Creation of Artificial Minds introduces anti-AI natalism, the view that we should abstain from creating sentient artificial.
By the way, I might be wrong on this, but I also heard Magnus fighting. It was also, I don't know if he's on the Wikipedia or not, but I think during the discussion about notable figures, I think there was commentary on, again, self-published works. I might be wrong on that, but anyway.
Artificial intelligence. He invokes three arguments by Thomas Metzinger, John Basel, and Sanders Beckers. Conclusions from the review. As we have seen, there is no single answer to the question, are animals included in antinatalism? There are differences of opinions and arguments among antinatalists. Some of them are explicitly against being antinatalists with respect to animals. Some of them argue that for animals Just as for humans, it's better not to come into existence and we should not breed them. Some even argue that we have reasons to or obligations to intervene in nature, to decrease wild animals reproducing or even to sterilize populations. And finally, certain antinatalistic positions are universal, that is, they are about sentient beings in general, which includes not only humans and animals but also possible conscious machines. Interpretation. I'll share my short interpretation of what we've just seen. Moral claims often promote or restrict behaviors of moral agents with respect to moral subjects. We know of many moral prohibitions, such as do not torture. A moral agent, usually a capable human being, should not torture moral subjects, such as babies, cats, chickens, aliens, conscious AI, or wild animals. This is perfectly understandable in many contexts, such as normal ethics, animal ethics, robot ethics, and others. We see the same thing in antinatalism, where the prohibition is more akin to do not bring into existence or do not create moral subjects. There are, of course, exceptions, most notably Julio Cabrera and Peter Wessel-Zapfe. This only shows that there are differences in views among antinatalist philosophers.
Oh, how did he pronounce?
Most notably Julio Cabrera and Peter Wessel-Zapfe.
Oh, okay.
This only shows that there are differences in views among antinatalist philosophers, and this is not odd. On the contrary, this is normal in philosophy.
Yeah, agreed. Oh, is that it? Bruh. So, okay, so the description says the video to end the debate on whether or not animals are included in antinatalism once and for all. Okay, if you... I don't think there's much...
Antinatalism and...
pretty sure people know that there are multiple arguments about that. Anyway, I agree with the essence of this video. Obviously, this debate has been going on for a very long time. Whenever I brought up those quotes, at least within the Benatar context, that didn't really go far in certain groups. I think as clearly as you can spell it out, the debate will continue forward. But kudos to creating this video. It's very succinct and makes the case that there are a plurality of views, and that's normal in philosophy. Good to see a video drop. It's been like 3 months since the last Conundrum video. I'll leave a link to the video. Check it out, and his blog. And I'm in Conundrum's Discord server, so pop by, say hi. Yeah, good video. I'm gonna hopefully. I'm excited when new videos pop up, but I was excited to watch this, so thank you. I'm gonna head out now. Have a good day, everyone. Take care. Cheers.